I'm Asha, and yes, she's got spirits. And if you're here, chances are you've got spirits too. Each week we dive into true hauntings, real Canadian history, and the stories that refuse to stay buried. So dim the lights and let's get into it. Cheers! It's 1815. Toronto isn't Toronto yet. It's still called York. There are no skyscrapers, no skyline, no CN Tower glowing in the distance. Just wilderness, water, and wind. And standing alone on what we now call the Toronto Islands is Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. It was built in 1808 to guide ships safely into the harbor. Back then, Lake Ontario was dangerous. Sudden storms, thick fog, freezing winters. Ships relied on the light, and someone had to keep it burning. That someone was a German immigrant named John Paul Radlmuller, and his story is one of Canada's oldest and darkest ghost legends, the Keeper. Being a lighthouse keeper in the early 1800s wasn't romantic. It was isolating. You lived alone, you hauled oil, you climbed narrow spiral stairs over and over. You trimmed wicks, you cleaned soot. And if that light went out, ships could crash, lives could be lost. Radlmuller took his job seriously, but he was also human. Historical records suggest that he may have supplemented his income by selling alcohol illegally to soldiers stationed nearby at Fort York. Liquor was heavily taxed at the time, and watering it down, that would not go over well. The night everything changed. January 1815. It's freezing. Two soldiers make their way to the lighthouse. Accounts vary, but here's what we know. An argument happened. It escalated. And by the end of the night, John Paul Radlmuller was dead. Official records show 2 soldiers were charged with his murder. But here's the chilling part. There was very little physical evidence. Some stories say he was beaten to death. Others claim he was dismembered, his body buried in pieces around the lighthouse grounds to hide the crime. No officially documented body was ever recovered, and despite the changes, the soldiers were acquitted. No one was convicted. The case faded into history, but the island did not forget the light. Here's where the story shifts from tragedy into legend. Sailors continued reporting the lighthouse beacon shining after the keeper's death. Now logically, yes, another keeper would have been assigned, but that detail didn't matter to those who had heard what came next, because residents began reporting sounds. Moaning, dragging noises, heavy footsteps climbing the tower's spiral staircase, long after tours had ended, long after the island went quiet. Caretakers over the years have reported doors slamming in calm weather, cold spots near the base of the tower, the feeling of someone standing behind them, and whispers, sometimes described as sounding German. Some paranormal investigators claim to have captured unexplained audio phenomena inside the tower. Others say the energy there feels unsettled, as if someone never finished their shift. The isolation effect. Now let's talk about environment, because setting matters. The Toronto Islands at night are eerily quiet. Even today, when ferries stop running, the island becomes dark in a way the city never does. The skyline glows in the distance, but where the lighthouse stands, it's shadowed. Wind moves through trees, water hits shore, and the stone tower feels older than everything around it. Imagine that in 1815. No city lights, no noise, just darkness and cold. If something violent happened there, that kind of energy can imprint. Some believe in residual hauntings. Not an intelligent spirit, but a loop, like emotional energy stuck in replay. A keeper climbing stairs, lighting a flame over and over. Fact versus folklore. Now, let's ground this, because on She's Got Spirits, we love a good haunting, but we also respect history. Here's what is historically documented. Gibraltar Point Lighthouse was built in 1808. John Paul Rodemuller was its first official keeper. He died violently in January 1815. 2 soldiers were tried for his murder. They were acquitted. Those are facts. The dismemberment story? Less certain, but widely repeated. The hauntings? Anecdotal. But here's what makes the story stick. Multiple generations, long before ghost tours were trendy, described similar experiences. Moaning, footsteps, presence. And when stories survive over 200 years, that's interesting. There's something poetic about this haunting. A lighthouse represents guidance, safety, protection in darkness. And the idea that the keeper never abandoned his post? It's eerie, but also strangely loyal. Maybe he stays because justice was never served. Maybe he stays because his body was never properly laid to rest. Or maybe he just never stopped working. The lighthouse still stands today. Tours are occasionally offered, and while it's now surrounded by parkland and summer cyclists, at night it feels different. If you ever visit, walk slowly, listen. The staircase inside is narrow. Stone walls echo easily. And if you hear footsteps behind you when no one else is climbing, well, maybe the keeper is just doing his rounds. There's something about unfinished stories that lingers. An unresolved murder, a body never recovered, a man who died violently in isolation, and a light that never went out. So the next time you see a lighthouse shining against dark water, ask yourself, is someone still tending that flame? Or has the shift simply never ended? This has been She's Got Spirits. If you love haunted history and a little bit of chills and a little bit of truth, make sure you're following the podcast, because there are so many more stories that refuse to rest. Until next time, stay curious and maybe don't climb the stairs alone. Cheers!